So, that was messed up. I don't really know what to say. Like, I genuinely am still. I don't know what's going on. I mentioned a while back I've been agnostic at best since leaving evangelical Southern Baptism over a decade ago. I was the Reddit atheist back in the beginning. Now, I don't know if I can ever live my life the same. I want you to know that what you're about to hear may shake your faith a little. I went in early on Wednesday evening, hoping to catch William before anyone else got there. Sure enough, I pulled up and he was already there, car in the parking lot. I hurried in out of the heat, thankful that at least the AC worked if this place was haunted as shit. I found William in his office. He was surprised to see me at the least. There wasn't really much else that I could do at this point. The encounter on Monday night fucked me up. I can still smell the stench of that thing, the decay from its breath. I want to gag. That's not to mention I keep hearing the sound of blood splashing in the baptism pool. Did you know blood splashing sounds different than water splashing? I think it's because of the consistency of it. It's really gross. I've been wearing earbuds most of the time since because it just keeps ringing. He must have known what I was there about. Not that he looked scared or anything, just concerned. Before I could even get a word out, he asked me what happened. Kind of took me off guard, to be honest. I was honestly going in expecting to be gaslit as insane. Take the little wins where I can, I guess. So I told him everything. The congregation, the swelling music and hymns, the shadows in the cemetery, the blood pouring from the baptism faucet. Everything, out in the open. And he acknowledged what I was saying, though didn't say much as I was going through my story. Until I told him about the screaming through the blue door. That one got him. Something changed on his face. Worry, maybe. I couldn't entirely place it. That was when I really leveled with him. Just one question to ask. Am I safe, or should I quit? Yeah, seems like a stupid question, I know. Nobody is safe in a haunted fucking church. What kind of bullshit is that? It was all I could think of, though, and the crux of what I needed to know. I grew up watching horror and shit, worked in haunts for a while, and I can deal with horror-type shit. As long as I know it can't hurt me and won't kill me. Haunted church? Sure, I'll just take an edible before I go in. Me and the spirits can be chill. Hell, I'll bring some for them, maybe they'll shut the fuck up. I was expecting him to tell me the opposite, though. So imagine my surprise when he tells me that I'm physically in no danger. He probably realized I didn't believe him. I'm still not entirely sure if he was trying to get me to quit then and there, too. The story I got at that point in the day already seemed like bullshit. Or at least, not the entire story. Unfortunately, I was right. But I couldn't settle for just leaving it at that. In short, William told me that what I was experiencing were former parishioners. He says he's had experiences too. Hell, he said he was terrified by almost the same thing happening to him as I had Monday night, way back when he first came here. He even apologized that he hadn't told me before, saying it was not okay and offering me a bonus for my troubles. Yeah, this was starting to sound like there was a lot more at play here. From his story, the church was hit badly by a strange plague back in the early 1800s. Nothing surprising there, considering we knew bumfuck all about diseases and spread them everywhere. William said most of the congregation perished, with the only survivors being the single pastor and his family, who somehow made full, prosperous recoveries. Totally not shady at all, right? What he tells me from here is all conjecture, because supposedly he can only theorize. The churchgoers would apparently gather often, even staying at the church for days, worshiping and praying for a cure. Meanwhile, this obviously would spread the disease among the flock, just damning them all one by one. Still, the preacher insisted they stay steadfast in the Lord, praying for forgiveness even as bodies began piling up out back. His family were some of the first sick, with his son even supposedly thought dead at one point, though looking back it must have just been a very deep coma. Yet, they're the only ones that survived. Everybody in that cemetery was once a member of this church who perished in that plague. The amount of death in one building would definitely be a magnet for weird shit. But William insists that the spirits are still looking for their preacher, believing he sacrificed them for his own family to live. I was honestly on board with that explanation. He assured me that the spirits wouldn't harm me, simply trying to get me to do what they wanted. Except then the question of, what the fuck does a congregation of ghost Christians want me to do for them? Open the door. That's what they wanted me to do, according to William. According to him, the ashes of the preacher and his family are stored down there. He was superstitious after losing his entire flock to a plague. They found him and his entire family dead down in that room one day, door and room freshly painted with a bright seafoam blue. From what William told me, he picked up on some Gullah Geechee superstitious customs when he started getting paranoid. They said spirits couldn't cross through, mistaking the blue for water, so he would be safe. Out of respect for the dead family, the church has kept the door blue since. William assured me that I was safe, but that there was nothing behind that door. It was simply a small room, sealed off out of respect or adherence to the dead, whatever I wanted to call it. The story was kind of believable when he was telling me. Maybe it's just my willingness to buy in thanks to just having my experience validated. Either way, he reassured me and I took my leave for the afternoon, telling him I would be back after service. Was I going to have to be here for a while after dark? Yeah, but the bonus was $600, so who are you to judge me? It wasn't until I was back home that I really started thinking about it. There was no way there was a room there. It didn't make sense with the outside of the church. So it started bringing me to other questions. Like, if he was so willing to tell me that, why not just show me? Spirits couldn't slip in behind that easily, right? Should just be an empty room, right? Then I thought about the screams I heard. They were definitely behind the door. But if spirits aren't allowed to cross in, then why the hell are they there? Is my haunting logic broken? Look, something wasn't sitting right with me about how he was acting. Something about what he was saying was giving away that there was more to everything. So, I decided to solve this shit, once and for all. Wasn't there some movie where the ghosts were trying to give hints about how someone needed help? Like they were doing terrifying, haunting shit, but really just trying to help. Crimson Peak, maybe? Either way, I thought that was a legitimate possibility. I'm not going to stereotype or anything, but we've had a number of evangelical preachers do shady shit in the news lately. My conscience wouldn't let me pass. So I ran into town before I was due to go back after Wednesday's service. Bought a set of bolt cutters and a crowbar. I'm finding out what's in that damn thing, even with a little vandalism. I kept everything hidden in my car until William left. He gave me some platitudes about still being there and being a dependable employee that he could count on. It sounded like a very veiled warning, though, like telling me to tread carefully with whatever I do tonight. That kind of reinforced my feelings about what I was going to do that night. He finally left around 9, right when the sun went down, and I was finishing up vacuuming the sanctuary. I waited, made sure he was gone for a few, just sitting in one of the pews waiting so I could make sure nobody saw me getting bolt cutters out of my car. Made it to my car fine, but turned to walk back into the church when a line of dark figures were suddenly standing among the cemetery headstones. None of them moved, just staring me down. Definitely upped my speed to get back into the church and slam the door behind me, even if he said they couldn't harm me. Hell, that could have been a lie too. Who knows at this point? I ran in, made sure every light was on, and started going at it. Cut off the padlock, cut the chain, and started hitting at it with the crowbar when things began going to hell. Lights went out, and gospel music began. I could look out into the sanctuary and see that the congregation was already there. I don't know if it was the adrenaline or what, but I suddenly got some Hulk-level strength and braced my foot against the doorframe, pushing the crowbar in harder. It finally gave, crashing in hard to the wall as it swung in. Deep blue light was pouring from below, showing faintly at the end of a long staircase. First off, I don't know how the hell there was a basement this deep in swamp-ass Georgia. Nothing about a lot of this made sense, to be honest. But I could hear the screams again. This time, louder, full force, drilling into my brain. I kept making my way forward, though, determined to find the source. There could be someone hurt down here, or, by the sounds of it, multiple people. The scream seemed to layer on itself, like a host of people all crying out in unison. It drowned out the gospel music, which started growing fainter behind me. Whatever was in there didn't even register for me at first. I had no idea what I was looking at, even more unsure about if it was something real. Maybe William was trying for a budding SFX career in Atlanta. I don't know. I was trying to rationalize a lot of things until it hit me. I'm describing it from memory, so bear with me. My eyesight isn't great, and I sure as hell didn't get close. The bright blue light was actually emanating from the thing, almost like a fucking anime aura. I have no idea how else to describe it, but the light was just radiating from it in waves, washing over me as it did. I could feel light. Not like when you sit in the sun for too long and start to burn, though. This was like water washing over me, sort of like floating down a lazy river, feeling the current flow past you towards the sea. I think back on it, and I should have felt more terrified, but the aura of it was peaceful, like it was speaking to me through it. Be not afraid. If you're a former Christian of any sort, you've heard that. Hell, even I feel like it's stereotypical. But I heard it. Not with my ears, but through the waves. I suddenly felt my heart rate relax, my muscles loosening as the aura continued. I felt at peace here for the first time in ages, and I knew it wasn't my antidepressants. That was when I took a full look at the creature in the room. Bright skin, shining like the sun was giving off the aura. For a moment, I thought it was a massive bundle of limbs at first, which isn't totally off base, but this thing looked like multiple torsos all conjoined, like they were sewn together, all standing back to back in a circle. Each one of them had different features, but each one was covered in eyes, blinking every different color I knew of, and some I couldn't quite comprehend. Every single one was fixed on me, though. That's when I noticed pieces of them missing. Arms and legs were cut off, leaving bleeding stumps that were gushing as if cut recently. There was a steady trickle of bright red falling from the creature, chained to a wall in the small room. The bodies looked frail, malnourished, and emaciated. Despite that, they were still pristinely clean, even bleeding. Its eyes remained fixed on me, a pleading in them. "Help us." It spoke to me again, this time more frail than the first. It must have known that I wasn't the same as whoever put it here. I don't know if it could sense something or it just went off guesswork, but it was asking me for help. That was when William spoke from the steps behind me. The angel changed, an aura of anger and fury taking over the blue, turning it to a crimson red. My sense of peace faded, turning to confront William, who was walking toward the angel, pulling a small pocket knife from his coat. I was still holding the crowbar, though I didn't even realize it until that moment when the entire atmosphere shifted. He stepped toward the angel, flicking the pocket knife against one of the outstretched hands, slicing a finger off and catching it before he turned to me. This motherfucker had the audacity to offer it to me, like a fucking snack. I felt my stomach churn harder than it did smelling death's breath, with zero fucking idea of what was going on. I literally asked him if he was trying to get me to eat it. Meanwhile, there was this thing howling in pain in the corner. The screams were back, with every face distorting in terror as sound pierced the air. He waited a moment for them to stop before he started in again. "If I ate that finger," he said, "I would have prosperity beyond belief. All I had to do was believe in him and eat of the flesh. He even said he's willing to supply me with more if I find I'm not quite happy yet, with the other effect being a major extension on my life. The only question I could really think to ask was how. I'm sorry if the details are vague. I get overloaded incredibly easily with information, and this was, if you really want to put it literally, a biblical amount of fuckery." His explanation made me even more sick. I grew up on the internet Wild West of LiveLeak and LimeWire, and this might be the first time I've really gotten a comprehension of man's depravity. This motherfucker was evil. He popped the finger in his mouth more casually than Yuji Itadori could ever hope to. Said he was a devout man his entire life, believing God would send salvation for him and his flock. Until the disease came. William told me how his son, Peter, fell ill first, having trouble breathing before slowly degrading, coughing blood from his lungs, and soon after, going into a deep, death-like sleep. That was when he started taking a different route than prayer and praise. William gathered his flock in the church one day, bringing them all together in a marathon of praise and worship to God. Then he began convincing them it was time to be rebaptized in the blood of the Lord, cleansing them of their illnesses. He brought in water, lining up all the parishioners to bring through the baptism tub. He baptized them, one by one, making sure they were thoroughly drenched. Once everyone was soaked, back at their pew ready to begin another hymn, he took his place at the pulpit and let loose his plan. He set up a rope ahead of calling over everyone, tagging up sacks of lye in the rafters. From there, it was just pulling on the rope, slicing the bags open with nails in the rafters, causing a caustic snow to fall down on the soaked congregation. He said it was a glorious sight. Everyone quickly realizing their baptism in the waters of heaven led to burning as if by the fires of hell. It took minutes before they all passed, killing everyone in the church except William. That was when the angel appeared. According to William, it was sent as punishment for the blasphemy he just committed. This jackass literally said, "I'm not going to confuse you with the details, but I studied a bit of dark practices," and trapped the fucking thing with whatever it was. That's why it was still chained down here, letting him just pick pieces off wherever he wanted. He said he cut off a foot for each of his family, making a stew for them while they were sick. Just pouring some into his son's mouth brought him out of a coma in hours. The angel's flesh is quite literally made of miracles, he said. And then he gave me the ultimatum. Leave and have no job, with my entire mental state totally fucked by this encounter and nobody to believe me. Or I could die. 2 options, neither of which were great for me. He lifted the knife, getting ready to strike if need be. Fight or flight came in hard. I don't know how I swung the crowbar as fast as I did. Maybe adrenaline again, but it bashed the side of his head. William crumpled quickly, falling to the ground in front of me with a thud and knocking his head on the hard floor. Dead. The chains holding the angel snapped, freeing it immediately. I don't even know what the hell happened after that. There was a bright flash. I could hear a voice saying thank you, and suddenly I was standing out in the cemetery. In front of me, the church was ablaze, a full inferno already. The heat coming off was intense, immediately drying any of the humid air around me. It raged up, with the sound of rising alongside the smoke, before totally incinerating in the dark night, flames dying out just as quickly as they began. Where the church once stood was nothing but a pile of ash, not even one board left standing. Look, I'm not talking to anyone unless they come to me asking what happened. Even then, not like they'll really believe me. William has got to be gone for good now, so maybe they'll just think he torched it for insurance, but the deed went wrong. Who knows? Maybe I'll get arrested. At this point, I'm out of a job, so it might be the preferable alternative to finding a job in the current economy. Things are gonna be rough. I'm still shaken up, and the anxiety about what's going to happen is fucking killing me. I don't know. Maybe after this I'll have an angel watching out for me. Fingers fucking crossed, at least.